This video is brought to you by Artistworks. Artistworks are part of TrueFire Studios, and they offer direct access to master musicians through their innovative online learning platform. Partnering with iconic musicians, they've crafted decades of industry experience into guided paths of online learning. Crucially, there's an option to get personalized feedback tailored specifically to your playing via their unique video exchange. Get direct guidance towards your playing goals. You can use the code GNC40 for 40% off of any of Artistworks courses. Earlier in the week, I did a video that I've been asked to make a few times about my entire guitar collection, and I covered all of the guitars that I've got. I didn't show you the nylon acoustic in the corner, but I did mention it, and I think, yeah, I covered everything that I've got. And someone in the comments there asked if I would do my entire amp collection. Now, in the past, this would have been a much longer, possibly more interesting video, but now it's pretty limited. So the thing that I've been gigging for a while is this matchless Lightning clone with a power output section of 6v6 tubes. This was made by Rift Amps in the UK. He made it with backwards left-handed dials, he calls them, that go, you know, as you turn them to the left, they go up higher. But yeah, he sold this on the forum. I think he was just getting rid of some stuff. He made this as an April Fool's joke. He sold it on a forum for 150 quid, and I sent Zilla Cabs a message and just asked, would you build me a head shell for this? And they very kindly did. So that's, that. I've got this Mesa Boogie Nomad 45, which is the first amplifier, really serious amplifier that I bought. Before that, I had a Crate GX65. Before that, I had a little Park by Marshall practice amp thing. And then I had a Marshall ABT 150 head and cabinet. That was like the most proper kind of full-size amp thing I've ever had, I guess. It had an acoustic sim on it and a clean and 2 drive channels and a bunch of effects. Anyway, so yeah, I bought this when I was about 16 or 17 from Manson's, which is no longer a shop. I think I paid £750 for it, and at the time I was really into Dream Theater and stuff like that. And to be honest, with a 7-string, or you know, for heavier stuff, I'm not sure it's particularly well suited. I never really felt like it completely did that thing. But these days, this is actually one of my favourite amps ever. And in the intro there, well, actually, this is a question first of all. Do you think you were hearing amps or modelers in the introduction there? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll tell you now, just to save wasting time. Actually, you heard the matchless clone to start with. That was like the first kind of clean bit. And then the drive tone was the drive channel of the Mesa Boogie Nomad. It's got 3 channels, clean, rhythm and lead. And each of those is actually kind of switchable to other things as well. You've got like modern and vintage on them. Okay, so that's those 2. I've also then got a Line 6 Catalyst, which I sort of don't really properly count on my amp body count. And also the Boss Katana Artist that they sent me to do a Boss Tone Exchange video with. And I do kind of rate both of those things as well, the Catalyst and the Katana. I do think if you sit them in a room, and I have tried this with the Catalyst, so I stood in a room with a Vibreverb of Jake's and Paul from down the road. He's got a Soldano Slow, and he had a Mesa Boogie F50 and something else. Anyway, I felt like the Catalyst totally sounded absolutely fine in that context, which at the time I made a video about it, it did feel kind of stupid. But looking back on it, I kind of still think, well, the modelling amplifiers do actually perform a really important role. And then the only other amp that I've got, I don't really count practice amps, but I've got a Katana Air in the cupboard, which again for Boss I made a tone exchange video. And I've got a Boss Dual Cube downstairs, which I'm planning to do some videos with. I've got an idea for trying to find sort of the kind of best practice amp, because I feel like, I've said this to David Beebe because he was considering getting something. I don't really know which ones really stand above the others in that marketplace. It's like quite crowded. You've got Vox Adios, you've got Sparks, you've got the Yamaha THR series, THR2, you've got the Boss Katana Air, or what else have you got? You've got Cube. There's a lot of different options. I think Vox makes some really cool ones as well. But it's not really that clear which ones are better than the others. So I did want to do sort of a video trying to pick my favourite sort of practice amp. And it might even be something like a Spider 5, because those, yeah, they're pretty well fully featured. Anyway, that's for another time. The only other amp, I've got a Next Tone Special there that I'm still waiting on Boss to make available, the Tone Exchange. That's not mine. That's going to go back to them at some point. And then I've got one other pretty cool amp which is downstairs, which is the 1964 Fender Pro Reverb. It's loaded with 2 EVM12 speakers, and that might have something to do with who we think its previous owner is. It was sold on consignment by a shop in Southampton-ish, Hampshire, and they told Jake that the owner was David Gilmour's tech, and they did say that, and this wasn't able to be corroborated, that it was part of the wall rig, didn't necessarily get used a whole lot, but it's in really nice condition. The only trouble with it is it's incredibly heavy, but there's one other really cool thing about it, and it's that it's serial number 1, which I think makes it the first Pro Reverb made by Fender on that production line, which is pretty cool. Anyway, it sounds incredible. I'm not able to get it upstairs at the moment because it has a thing for wanting to destroy my back because it's incredibly heavy. And for that reason, I don't think I could gig the thing. And the reason that I used to have a ton of amps, and you've probably seen a bunch of them. I've done videos on kind of my collection of Mesa Boogie amplifiers and all this sort of stuff. More recently, I kind of started to think about this a whole lot differently. And I used to have this in mind that, you know, a Fender amp and a Marshall and a Vox might all sound totally different. But when you put them through the same speaker, the main thing that I notice is just differences in the amount of available gain. And I did a test to this effect. I think I had like a Mesa Boogie Electrodyne, I had a Marshall JCM 800, the Studio Vintage series, I probably had a Vox AC15 or something like that in there, as well as the Nomad 45. And because the Nomad 45 has the 3 distinct channels, I was able to get the Nomad to sound more drastically different than the other amps to each other. And so for me, it's got to the point where I felt like I was just buying amps for the sake of it, rather than buying amps that were worth me actually owning. And I feel like I'm in a bit more of a sweet spot here. So I've got the Vox style kind of matchless thing. I've got the Nomad, which can do that really nice lead tone if I needed that. And it's also a channel switching amp. I feel like if you're going to have a few amps, maybe something that does channel switching, maybe one sort of single channel clean pedal platform that can do edge of breakup, maybe like the Matchless Lightning type amp. And then maybe if you had like a Fender style amp. I did ask Keith from 5 Watt World about this, and he suggested maybe the Deluxe Reverb as an amp might be a sort of thing that could do most of what you need and more. And I think, yeah, that's a really good shout. I feel like, yeah, if you're going to have a lot of amps, there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. For me, I don't have a ton of space and I don't use them loads. I'm more of a modeler guy, and I think that became obvious when I had like a bunch of Mesa Boogie amps that just sat behind me that I never used. So that is why I ended up selling them, because A, they weren't getting much use, B, they take up quite a lot of space, and C, if I was going to take them out, the combo stuff kind of is not good for my back, and for that reason I kind of let most of them go. What I've kept is I've got a single 1x12 cab from Mesa Boogie, which has an EVM speaker in it, which, because it's just a cab and a speaker, it's not so heavy to cause problems. And then this little thing by itself is really lightweight. The Nomad 45 is about 28 kilos, something like that, so not light. And the modelling amplifiers are, of course, generally pretty light. The Pro Reverb is definitely too heavy at the moment for me. So whether I might in time put in some lighter speakers. Oh, also I've got the Tone Master Super Reverb that Jake is borrowing at the moment. I think he gigged it last night and I don't think he particularly enjoyed it. That was just to sort of do an experiment with and see what it was like, because they're kind of the upper tier of the modelling amplifier where it's kind of expensive. I wanted to see whether those were worth it or whatever. So I'm going to do a kind of follow up on that, I think. But yeah, that's the other thing. But again, because that's modelling, I don't know whether I count that as a proper amp or not. Let me know your thoughts. Are you someone who keeps a lot of tube amps, or have you found one that works perfectly? Like Keith said, I think like that Deluxe Reverb kind of idea could be a really good thing. Or if you're into your heavier stuff, I think having something like a Mesa Boogie or something channel switching that is really versatile could be a good shout. Myself personally, I think if there was one amp I could choose that would do a really good job of most things, it might be a Mesa Boogie Lone Star. And I don't know whether I'll own one of those again in the future, but that can kind of do beautiful cleans, really, really nice driven stuff as well. That was a super versatile amp that I kind of sort of maybe miss a little bit, but at the end of the day, if I'm not going to be using it live, then I don't need it so much. I'm also really liking the idea of the single channel pedal platform type thing, because it's just a different thing. I've got a master volume on this. That's another point as well. An amp with a master volume, if you're going to have just the one amp, might be what I would choose, so that you've got something capable of being, you know, a little bit more versatile. Otherwise, you know, they're generally less versatile. I think at some point I do want to try a proper full-blown Marshall, because I've never played a Plexi or whatever, but that would probably just be for the sake of trying it rather than something I think I'd actually keep. But yeah, that's my amp collection now, such as it is pretty humble now, isn't it? Let me know your thoughts. If you've got favourite amps or amps that you think I should definitely know about, definitely try. I'd love to hear those in the comments. Cheers.
Mm-hmm.